Why Media Group? The fastest growing media group in North America.
Hello and welcome back to Why Media Newsroom. I'm Ramona Singh, and I'm going to cover what's taking place on NATO summit. Well, now NATO has reaffirmed their Article 5, which is an attack on one is an attack on all. And I'm going to talk about what President Trump said in the press conference that we covered for you and the things he said about NATO in return, and of course cover what the Prime Minister of Canada said in response to that. But NATO has 32 NATO member countries that are unanimous in terms of affirming their commitment to Article 5, which is the alliance's collective defense clause, calling it a foundation for the transatlantic security of NATO. Now, the leaders do stress that any attack against one NATO member country will be treated as an attack on all, and attack on all meaning the 32 member countries. This is the time where we're seeing them come together, and there's been a shift in what is the criteria. First, for the last decade, it was NATO summit, 2% GDP. Will you please spend 2% of your GDP on defense spending? NATO countries, NATO member countries, and some countries like Canada were like, yeah, we're going to spend 1.2, 1.4% of GDP on defense. Not even a year ago, we decided we're going to hit the 2% of GDP, meet the commitment. Okay, now NATO is asking for 5%, and they want to know proof of how it's going to meet those criteria. This is why you saw Mark Rutte, which is the Secretary General of NATO, essentially praise President Trump on this renewed spending on defense. Now, what came out of that is that the NATO member countries have now committed approximately, wait for this number, $70 billion in military assistance to Ukraine in 2026, while pledging to maintain at least equivalent support levels in 2027. I want to know what voters will think when it comes election time in all those countries. Do they want to keep funding a war that goes on for so many years? Hey, there's no doubt about Russia is the one invading Ukraine. But at some point, how long is this going to go on for? When will they come to what we saw in MOU that now is a ceasefire that's been collapsed? But you know Iran and the United States are going to come back to the table. You know they are. You know, today they break up, tomorrow they're going to make up. We know we've seen this story a few times in the last few months now, especially between these two leaders at the helm of their countries. So now, but the question remains, how long? How long is this going to go on with Russia and Ukraine? So now, $70 billion pledge for 2026, similar support for 2027, and this includes weapons, training, defense industry support, and for Ukraine to remain NATO's top security priority. Now, rather than debating whether to continue supporting Ukraine, which is what the United States was doing when President Trump won his second term, NATO has now shifted towards how quickly it can deliver weapons and industrial capacity to Ukraine. Yeah, what's happened to the Ukrainian people, the millions that have been displaced, it is quite devastating. We're seeing a massive escalation now with Ukraine hitting targets inside Russia. So now the war has gone from being in Ukraine to now being on the offensive in Russia. And the alliance members have highlighted a significant increase in defense investments and military production and procurement. This entire arming and defense spending, are we going to have a greater war ahead of us? Is this what we're looking at? Because with Russia being in a war for 4 years, um, do we think Russia's going to attack other countries after it's in this massive conflict with Ukraine? And this entire remilitarization of spending taxpayer dollars on bombs to kill other human beings, regardless of what country they're from, but they're human beings nonetheless. That's what we have in common, is just very alarming of the tone, how where things are going. So now NATO's asking for these financial commitments and what would be in terms of real military capability. And that the question begs, are you going to send your son and daughters to join the military, to risk their lives? This is the question. And even though Canada is going for a massive recruitment process, but are we using our AI intelligence, our defense capabilities and know-hows, our young people, are we all just sending them in the line of more wars and more forever wars? And because when you spend to have arms, are you just going to keep it in a warehouse? We know in any business when you're selling goods, the main thing you want to do is you want to move product as fast as possible. You don't want it to sit in the warehouse, right? Taking space because the increase of cost over time with a depreciation value of the goods sitting in a warehouse is not something any business owner wants to do. And now if we can take the same sentiment of just common sense and apply it to, you're going to spend billions, hundreds of billions of dollars on defense, on military equipment, on military submarines, on fighter jets, on arms and more arms, then you're clearly going to use it. It's not just going to go sit in some warehouse, is it? And to be funded by the taxpayers. So this is the real question, real concern of what's taking place before our very own eyes. And here's the reality. There's just 32 leaders at this NATO summit. There's 8 billion of us, right, that get to vote for our governments where we think we have democratic rights and we pick our elected officials, which we do. We go to an election every 4 years or maybe less than that if it's a minority government. But the reality is there's only 32 of them sitting in a room making decisions and doing press conferences with that level of language, which, is not something we're taught growing up with becoming educated and well-established civilized people. And so the level of conversation we're seeing with these 32 leaders and the others that they invite to these summits, really they're going to make the decisions for the rest of the world, the 8 billion people that we're just going to send our young, uh, uh, young people, young Canadian to join the army, to join the navy, to join and send them to war? Is this what's taking place? Are we going to do a draft? Are we going to do a mandatory draft? Because it looks like what's happening in the United States, we don't want that level in Canada, do we? I mean, this is a really high concern of what's taking place and the way Prime Minister Mark Carney is just spending to meet these terms, it's very alarming. And so this is a very critical time to pay attention because what Canadians care about is jobs, affordability, a good lifestyle. I don't think the Canadians want to just go to war and send our sons and daughters to war and to kill other human beings. This is not the Canadian values, this is not the Canadian way. And so when you look at what NATO's talking about in terms of investments in AI and cyber and next generation warfare, right? Do we really want people like the Israeli prime minister and the way he goes to wars to be something that becomes commonplace, or the way we've seen President Trump go to war and just attack and attack different nations? Is that the way we want things to be? Because there was once upon a time a difference between the Western world and our consensus on going to war compared to what we've seen in escalations in other places in the world. So now you have the NATO summit highlighting NATO's transition towards what is going to be very advanced technologies, including artificial intelligence, cyber defense, autonomous systems. So what, we're going to have robots kill people? Like, that's what we're talking about. When we talk about AI, we're talking about robots, right? Like, if you want to simplify what artificial intelligence is a robot. So you want robots to make the decision on where to strike and kill people. And then these integrated missile defense and new transatlantic war fighting cloud and all the things that is way above our heads because we don't know these things because we're not in the war industry. And so you have what's taking place with AI being incorporated into military planning, expansion of cyber capabilities, and that's why you need all this AI data centers that is sucking the energy and the electricity from cities that it goes into or towns that it goes into. And then there's the whole health risk of what it means to have these data centers so close to communities and what so let me get this straight. This is our plan. Our plan is to have AI go at a rapid phase of where there's no oversight. No government is talking about oversight on AI right now that we're seeing. And I could rhyme all the companies that are laying off mass amount of people just to be able to replace Salesforce, Meta, Microsoft. I mean, it's endless. The list is endless. Google, it's endless of them laying off thousands of people. Now we're talking about tens and almost probably we're going to hit the quota of 100,000 people that are being laid off because that money needs to go into AI and AI development and AI efficiencies. So then we could have our natural critical minerals, be pulled out to make chips and to be able to have enough electricity and grids to fund the AI centers, which possibly cause health concerns and the amount of water it takes to cool them down for communities, and then to have robots and AI really decide to kill people and nations and go to war. And that's all by whatever few people are still working and paying taxes, because AI is not paying taxes, obviously, unless there's a mechanism of what the taxation will be on corporate tax for AI companies, which I haven't heard anyone talk about. Any MP or minister that I talk to, it seems to be over their heads. They're not even thinking about it. So so the few people that will work will pay taxes, and their tax dollars will go to buy arms, making the kind of companies that make arms very wealthy. And then that's going to fuel this whole AI boom as well of integrating it into our military so we can just kill more people. Is this the plan? Is this what we're covering at the NATO summit or at the G7 or the G20? Is this what we're doing? Is this the big plan for life now? Or I mean, are we backtracking in consciousness or really what's happening? So this is the alarming stuff that's coming out of what I could cover for you in the NATO summit. And then you have what NATO is saying that they want to expand their defense industry cooperation, which is pushing defense manufacturing expansions, because it's announcing major industrial initiatives designed to expand weapons production, kill more people, strengthen supply chains, kill more people, improve interoperability among member nations and kill more people. And leaders say that they're going to increase manufacturing and kill more people. And essential to what would be unsustainable long-term deterrence or maybe kill more people is really all the gaps in between of what these leaders are saying. And that is the state of affairs when it comes to the newsroom covering the news about what's happening with our leaders right now. So now NATO is calling Russia an enduring threat to what would be a Euro-Atlantic security. Meanwhile, if Russia, the question begs, if Russia is such a big threat, why is it in a war for 4 years that it started and cannot finish if it's such a big threat? And now with $70 billion going to Ukraine after, I would probably say about $1 billion in the last 4 years that's gone to Ukraine, why can it not finish this war? Are we just in this peddling cycle of just funding taxpayer dollars into this forever war that doesn't seem to end? And if anything, I don't think Ukraine is now the underdog, because the underdog is a country that can't afford to do things and doesn't have the capability. After 4 years, we have what was announced in terms of Ukraine really sending their expertise and drone and fighting to the Americans and some of the GCC countries, right? Because now they've become experts. So with all this military funding that they've received, they're no longer the underdog. So if Russia's such a threat, why haven't they been able to finish this war? And if Ukraine is getting so much funding, why haven't they been able to finish this war? Or is really the question that we're not supposed to finish the war and we're just supposed to talk about this ongoing war for as long as possibly we could since 2022? Same thing begs the question about all the forever wars Israel's in. So at the end of the day, this is what's happened at the NATO summit. And if I were to cover more of it, it would just be more of how much of your hard-earned tax dollars are going to buy more weapons to kill more people, is really the nutshell on everything. But what I can do is I can go to our prime minister who's answering questions to reporters on what President Trump has said. Take a look.
Big new capabilities for NATO: airlift, refueling,
Yeah.
area surveillance. But when President Trump arrived, all he talked about was the refusal of the allies to participate in the attack on Iran. Is there a mismatch between alliance leaders who want to talk about what NATO can do and a president who's fixated on what NATO won't do?
The alliance is a defensive alliance. It's not an offensive alliance. The President of the United States had a desire for more offensive support with respect to the Iran conflict, and it wasn't a direct ask of Canada. We didn't have the capabilities. We're not relevant from a base perspective in that theater, and that's between him and specific NATO allies. Bright and early. We got the early slot this morning. Well, first off, before we kind of record, let me thank you all for coming. I know it's an imposition, but it's important. The overall backdrop. Let me just say a couple words. Overall backdrop, then we'll take questions. And I just said something to the effect just as I was walking in. Big picture. The threats are changing rapidly. The threats that face Canada, the threats that face the alliance, evolution of the technical threats, if I can put it that way, from hypersonic missiles to autonomous warfare, hybrid warfare, the adversaries, Russia as a direct adversary. So that evolution is there. There's a process of shifting burdens. We've known about that, shifting burdens towards within the alliance, away from the United States. United States still in the alliance without question, but shifting towards Europe and Canada, and those burdens being picked up. And the capacities are being built, and you've seen recent announcements. There's more announcements today from Canada in terms of our procurement, building capacity, across maritime capacity with the sub announcement, light vehicles, munitions, the aircraft announcement, which we've now seen endorsed by NATO with the Global Eye, and that puts us in a position. Last point, and then we'll go to questions. The way we see things is a NATO that is moving towards burden shifting, more regional integration within a NATO umbrella. And so, par rapport le Canada, et c'est l'Arctique, c'est la responsabilité de l'Amérique du Nord.
There you have it. That is Prime Minister Mark Carney essentially talking about what's taking place at the NATO summit and summarizing what all the spending is going to be about. Now I want to go on to another big story, which is the US and the RCMP have charged 37 people in a massive transnational crime crackdown linked to also Nijjar's killing. So you have authorities in the United States, Canada, and Europe have charged 37 people connected to the 3 India-based organized crime syndicates in one of the largest international law enforcement operations. It's targeting South Asian criminal networks. Now, the investigation, dubbed Operation Hardball, alleges that imprisoned gangster Lawrence Bishnoi and his associate Goldie Brar ordered the 2023 assassination of Sikh activist Hardeep Singh Nijjar in Surrey, BC. About 24 suspects have been arrested, including 3 in British Columbia. This is very big news right now because if you recall, that was massive eruption. And if you recall at the time in 2023, you had Prime Minister Justin Trudeau say that India was responsible for it. So today we're seeing some announcements come out about this organized crime syndicate that is responsible. So here you have RCMP that has arrested 3 suspects in British Columbia pending extradition proceedings. And to that is Lawrence Bishnoi and Sachtinder Singh, which is Goldie Barar, are accused of ordering the killing of Hardeep Singh Nijjar. The investigation targeted 3 major criminal organizations allegedly involved in murder, extortion, drug trafficking, weapons trafficking, and kidnapping. The investigators accused more than 50 they executed more than 50 search warrants and seized large quantities of narcotic, firearms, and cash. The U.S. prosecutors said that the indictment does not allege any involvement by the Indian government, focusing instead on the organized crime network. So now, if you recall, Hardeep Singh Nijjar was a Canadian citizen and a Sikh separatist leader, and he was shot and killed outside of the Gurdwara in Surrey, British Columbia, back on June 2023. Now, the killing triggered a diplomatic crisis after Canada accused agents linked to the Indian government of involvement, and the allegations India has repeatedly denied. This was the time when Prime Minister Justin Trudeau got up in the House of Commons and made those accusations. Now, the latest US-led indictment instead focuses on what is now the alleged role of Bishnoi's criminal enterprise and its North American operations. The RCMP say that the investigations demonstrate unprecedented cooperation between Canadian American law enforcement against what is in this case a transnational organized crime. We have the press conference of the police. Take a look.
Seven of the defendants, including the organization's figurehead, the gang's North American leader, Goldie Barar, and the gang's European leader, Rohit Godara, are charged with racketeering conspiracy. The charges set forth in the indictment include allegations that Lawrence Bishnoi and Goldie Barar directed the 2023 assassination of a prominent Sikh leader in Canada, identified by his initials HSN in the indictment.
This is one of the most significant organized crime investigations involving Canada in years beyond Nijjar's murder. Authorities say that they dismantled criminal networks smuggling, essentially criminal networks responsible for drug trafficking, extortion, kidnapping, as well as weapons smuggling across multiple continents. And when it comes to this indictment, it also is focusing on what is happening with organized crime leadership. This is massive news in terms of the cooperation between Europe as well as Canada and the United States. And this is also coming at a time where we're seeing Canada continue rebuilding its relationship with India. So this is very significant news that's come out of it. Obviously, we're going to follow this developing story to know more about what has taken place. That's all the time we have on today's Y Media Newsroom. I'm Ramona Singh. Until tomorrow, take care and be well.